Gloves are essential. I got a new mold in the mail today. So let's open this guy up. It's really quite pretty. It'll make like a little nice trivet or something like that. This is the resin I usually use for larger projects. I usually buy it at Michael's, and it's one of the more affordable choices. As long as you're not doing anything much deeper than this, it'll harden up nicely and give you a nice finished product. I'm also going to be using these pigments that I've purchased off Amazon as well. I find the white in it very difficult to get like a nice sturdy resin out of after, but all the other colors come out really pretty, and there's quite a bit of variety for like the greens and stuff like that. And just to give you an example, I have this peridot, jadeite, fluorite, and a malachite. And I also like to sometimes mix in like the amber color too, just to give it a little more variation. So that's the range of the greens that's in that box, which I think is pretty decent. You can see my setup. I like to work outside as much as I can with just the regular natural drying resins, because it's just a nicer day to enjoy it that way. But I definitely do UV resins inside, just for obvious reasons. I have my very well loved silicone measuring cup, as well as these little measuring cups that are really pliable, which are great for mixing your colors from your main measuring cup. And most importantly, even though I usually try to use clean ones, I do have a leftover one, and it is wasteful to not reuse them. So they're just like disposable shot glasses that I find really easy as measurement guides. You just fill it up to the very top, and then you pour it into the silicone measuring cup. I find that these, because you can squeeze them, are not quite as accurate as doing a regular shot glass. So with this type of resin, it is equal parts. So you first measure out your resin and then measure out your hardener. And you need to stir it for 4 minutes once you put it together. And try to not stir in big air bubbles, because they're a bit of a pain in the butt to get at the end. But yeah, happy stirring. So for this size, it's probably going to be 2 of these, but let's start off. Let's see. So very full, and just right on in. And grab yourself a spoon. And by spoon I mean wood stick, or if you can find the silicone sticks, those work terrific too. I broke mine, so I need to get a new one. Make sure to give it a really good scrape. Anything you leave behind can distort your proportions, so it's really important to do it this way. I also find that this resin, you can't weigh it. If you do weigh it, you might also have an error in your pour. So just give it a good stir. Like I said, give it a real proper 4 minutes. And like I'm doing, see there's already a little bit of air bubbles going on. Just try to avoid that. So as not up and down, like really scraping the bottom and stirring is your best bet. And not super quick either. Resin is a bit of a fussy creature. So I went ahead and stirred it really vigorously to create as many bubbles as I could. Just so that I could really give you a proper demonstration of how to pop all of them. So I'm just going to pour a little bit into each one of these little mixing containers. because we're going to add some different shades of green into them to give the leaf a little interest. But we can start by pouring the clear into the base at the moment. It always seems to be more stuck inside than you think. Alright, so next we're going to take some of the peridot and plop it in a couple drops into that guy. Definitely going to take jadeite as well. Couple drops. And let's do the malachite for the beginning here. Now, resin, while it's liquidy, is definitely self-leveling, so if you want to get stuff into different areas, just go ahead and tip it around a little bit, not too far, like I just did. There we go. So let's give these a stir. Definitely stir lightest color to darkest so you don't have to keep changing sticks along the way. Just give it a good little mix. Can always add more. But that's a very pretty color. Next we will do this guy. I'm going to start by pouring the darkest color because I want that as my stem, and we want that to be the boldest. Now I'm just going to add one of the lighter colors just to, again, create sort of the leaf pattern, the veining. Continue adding colors, almost layering them over each other, side by side, over. It kind of gives it a more natural look if you blend them that way. So I'm mixing up some extra right now. Anyone else love looking at the dappled light on the resin while I work? Gosh, no, I sure do. So with the second round of resin that I made up, I'm just going to go over the original colors that I put down. And then, like, I added a little bit of yellow. It's just going to add a little bit more variation and just reinforce that contrast that I originally made. Just keep layering those colors. Trust the process. So now I'm going to take my stir stick and just try to move the resin around to a pleasing pattern. So a little bit more presence into the veining, just basically mushing the colors around until I think it looks nice. So now I'm going to start adding some clear resin just to fill up the mold. It also helps disperse some of the colors a little, giving it a bit more of a natural vibe. At this point, I clearly need a little bit more colors. I'm going to mix up a few more just to go over some of the veining, giving it a bit more contrast again. It's kind of like magic when it all starts to come together. You can start to see at this point it's really starting to have much more of a authentic leaf vibe. And here's the final little bit that I'm adding, just to use up the bit at the end. So I'm just going to scrape out the last little bits of each of the colors that I've mixed and add them sort of gently through the veining on the leaf. And ta-da! Your resin mixing is over! And your air bubble popping has just begun. So here I'm just taking a lighter as close as I can go without catching the resin on fire, and the bubbles will pop. Sometimes you have to let it settle and then go back over it again, but generally the air bubbles will all pop with the lighter. Although trying to use a lighter in the wind outdoors is not my finest choice, but it does work. Just takes a little patience. And dozens of lighter clicking moments later, we are going to be pretty darn bubble free. Now let's unmold this beautiful leaf together. Wow, has that come out beautiful? It's just stunning, isn't it? I am completely in love with it. So now for the final touches. They don't usually show you this in any of the videos, but it is one of those things that I think is really important to share. Usually when you take it out of a mold, there's tiny little sharp points that are left just from where the resin shifts a little, and they are lethally sharp. So you really want to just take a file. I just use a good grit nail file. I think it's the 100 and the 180, and just give it a good rub down. It shouldn't take too much effort to get the really sharp points softened. And trust me, you'll appreciate that in your final product. And here's my final piece in all its glory. I just thought it was so lovely in the sun, the dappled light on the grass.